Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how I mix guitars on our latest song by Sharetta. I've been using this track to do some of the tutorials and I started to get some questions asking how I mix the rhythm guitars or how I mix the guitars in general. So I thought maybe I'd do a video and I show you how I mixed it. So let's take a look. Here are my rhythm guitars and let me play a little bit of the intro because there's no vocals or anything like that. I just want to play the intro and then we'll break it down. So let's solo the rhythm guitars and let's just listen to them by itself. I'm not going to play the whole thing, just a little snippet of it, and then we'll break it down. So let's bypass everything. Let's loop this and let's start with the first plugin. Okay, the first thing I do is I high pass and low pass. I'm at about 120 and I'm about 9K. And then here is my when I look for the fizz, I try to take out some of the fizz on high-end guitars, guitar amps. And then here I found there was something resonating on the low end. So I just took out just a little bit. So let's do a before and after here. All right, let's go to the next plugin. So here I have another EQ, but this time I'm adding a little bit of top end at 7K and at 1.5. This is probably the plugin that really changes the tone or is the most drastic plugin that affects the sound of the guitars. All right, let's take a listen. So basically just making it a little bit brighter. Normally I try to EQ the amp when I'm tracking the best I can, and I do. But I just felt that I needed a little bit more top end as I was mixing it. All right, let's go to the next plugin. This one is just a compressor. I use the Renaissance Axe. I use moderate preset, and I don't touch any of the parameters. I just leave it at that. Set it and forget it. So, and what this is doing is just clamping down a little bit more of the guitars, even though high-end guitars or high-gain guitars are already heavily compressed. What this does, it pushes the guitars a little bit forward in the mix. All right, here we go. And it's doing about 3 dB of gain reduction. And you can hear the gain reduction because I don't mess around with the makeup gain here. But then you'll notice that with my final plugin, which is the Clipper by Black Salt Audio, and it will kind of bring the guitars even further up the mix. Here we go. All right, cool. As you can see, that's about it in terms of the rhythm guitars. But I do have here, if you notice, the second time this rhythm repeats, I have an octave guitar. And my octave guitars, I keep it up the middle. So I pan left and right, hard left and right my rhythms, but then I keep the octaves up the middle. And let me show you what that is doing. So let me just solo the rhythms and the octave together so you can kind of hear what it's doing. And then by itself. All right, so now let's just bypass everything. You're gonna notice that I'm using pretty much the same plugins. Again, high pass and low pass. High pass just a little bit more, and low pass also a little bit more drastic, just so it can sit more in the center. And then here is where I found the the fizz on the amp, and I just pulled it out a little bit. Next, again, API plugin just to add a little bit more top end, but I did it on 1K. I just on 7K. Then we have the Renaissance Axe, same thing, moderate preset. And then finally the clipper, same thing, three dots or 3 lights, because I used to use the JST clipper, and I'm pretty much doing the same thing here. But then here, you're going to notice that I have some time-based delay. I have a reverb here. And then reverbs, I only add to either lead guitars or solo guitars or octave guitars. I never add any effects like time-based effects on my rhythm guitars. I like to keep those dry. But here I am adding a little bit. So let's see what it's doing. So basically what it's doing is just adding some depth to it. Whereas the left and right is using left and right stereo feel. The reverb is kind of moving it forward and backwards in the mix. And that's what I'm doing here. And then even though I have the octaves up the middle, I do add a doubler just to give it a little bit of a spread. So let's see what this is doing. All right, cool. And then together, within the whole mix, I'm going to put it 2 bars before, so you can kind of hear the guitars by itself, and then the octave kicks in. And that's it. So that's how I mix my guitars. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I answer all of them. And until next time, happy mixing.